You'll no doubt remember the safe return of Ellen MacArthur at the end of her epic, non-stop 71-day solo voyage around the world. Of course, over the years, so many sea voyages have ended very differently, often with tragic results. One such voyage ended on Friday the 14th of October, 1881. It was a ship called the Cyprian. Only the day before, she had steamed out of Liverpool, carrying various sorts of cargo on her way to Genoa in Italy. She never reached her destination. A terrible storm hit Britain that day. There was major damage all over the country. Roofs were blown off houses, trees were uprooted, hurricane winds and massive waves swamped boats large and small around the coastline. What happened to the Cyprian became the most well-known of the disasters at sea. During the storms, first one engine gave out and then the other. A sail was hoisted, but the wind was too severe. The Cyprian ended up being smashed against the jagged rocks near a little place called Roscoe off the North Wales coast. From a crew of 27, 19 died. One of them was the brave young captain, John Alexander Strachan. He was an experienced sailor with a good crew. But why am I telling you about him? After all, he died 124 years ago. Well, for this reason. Captain Strachan didn't have to die that day. He quite literally gave his life so that someone else might live. Captain Strachan had given the order to abandon ship. Every man for himself now, he had called. And then as he was just about to jump into the sea, he noticed a boy appear from hiding. He was a stowaway. On seeing how frightened he was, and knowing that there were no more life jackets, Captain Strachan immediately took his own life jacket off and gave it to the boy. He told him to jump into the water. The huge waves eventually carried the boy over to the rocks. He was badly bruised, but he was saved. Now, if anyone had a right to the life jacket, it was the captain. If anyone deserved not to have the life jacket, it was that boy. The captain owed the boy nothing. The boy deserved nothing. He was a criminal. Perhaps he'd been hiding from the police. His life had no doubt been full of trouble and not worth much to anyone. And yet, this kind-hearted captain died to save that boy. This touching incident is a picture of someone else who died for the undeserving. Someone who died not just for one other person, but someone who died for millions of others. That someone is Jesus Christ. The undeserving are, now wait for it, you and I. You see, we're no better than that stowaway boy was. Perhaps you're insulted by that, but it's true. We have all sinned against God. The Bible puts it like this: we all like sheep have gone astray. Each one has turned to his own way. Perhaps like the boy who was running away, you've been trying to run away from God. But if you're honest, you don't deserve anything from him, do you? We like to think that God owes us many things: health, wealth, a long life. Really and truly, though, God owes us absolutely nothing. In fact, the only thing we deserve is to be punished for the wrong in our lives. Our great problem is this: we're all guilty before God, and because God is perfectly holy and just, he cannot turn a blind eye to our sin and just pretend it doesn't matter. It does matter. God's justice says that sin must be punished. Sin is so serious that the only fitting punishment is death. But the good news for us is this: Jesus Christ was willing to take our place and die as a substitute for sinners. He didn't wait for us to change. He'd have waited forever. No, he stepped in when we needed him most. Just listen to these words from the Bible. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Wow, that's what he did for someone like you and someone like me. Yes, it happened a very long time ago, but it happened. And it happened because of God's amazing love to the undeserving. Like Captain Strachan, Jesus didn't have to die. He could have walked away from that threat of the cross many times. And after all, he owed us nothing. But he chose to die for sinners. That's the very reason he came into the world. Everyone on shore that day in 1881 was deeply moved when they heard the stowaway's account. "He gave himself for me! He gave himself for me!" the boy had cried. Can you say the same about Jesus? Do you believe and know that Jesus died for you? Have you been saved by his grace and kindness toward you? You know, years later, a Welsh captain was saved when his boat was sunk off the Azores. He was amazed to discover that the chief officer on the rescue ship was none other than a man called J.W. Clarn, the stowaway whom Captain Strachan had saved years before. His life had obviously been dramatically changed through being saved. Friend, your life can be dramatically changed too through being saved by the Lord Jesus Christ. Imagine for a moment what would have happened if the boy had refused the life jacket. Sadly, many do that with Jesus' offer of salvation. I'll make it by myself, thank you, we might say. But how ungrateful, how foolish to reject the kind and loving offer of God to us who don't deserve it. I do hope and pray that that won't be true of you. Instead, receive the gracious offer of salvation while we have the opportunity. His promise is this: whoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved.